Okay, so oxidation number method. If we can, we split the equation into two half equations. Usually we use the oxidation number method when we cannot split into two half equations. We determine the oxidation number of each of the elements or the major elements in the reaction. We determine the number of electrons involved for each half reaction. This part, you have to look at the variation of the oxidation number and multiply it by the number of atoms which are undergoing the variation. Part 3 is not easy. يعني هلا بتشوفوا. Then we balance the electrons between the two halves. We write the overall reaction by adding the two half reactions. Then we actually balance the charges, very different, part 6, by adding H plus in acidic medium or OH minus in basic medium. Then we use water to balance the hydrogen and the oxygen together. So here's an example. So first we're going to assign the oxidation state, okay, and determine which element is being oxidized and reduced. So iron gets an oxidation state of 0 because it's in the natural state. You already know that oxygen is always a -2, leaving the manganese to be X. What is X? شوفوا هون -2 times 4 equals la -1 plus X equals to -1. Find the X, it becomes 7 plus. Hydrogen is a +1. Iron 3 plus takes the charge as the oxidation number. Oxygen is -2, so this manganese is +4. And really water, I usually don't put any oxidation numbers, but if you want, this is -2 plus 1. But there's no need usually for putting or even assigning anything to water and H plus. Literally what we're doing here is showing you just that you should put oxidation states mainly on the iron and the manganese because those are the two elements which are going to be oxidized and reduced. What's happening to iron? We are losing 3 electrons, so therefore it's oxidation. What about manganese? What's happening to manganese?
It gains 3 electrons.
It's becoming less positive, so its gaining happens to be also 3 electrons. Okay, and here in front of the iron, I don't have any stoichiometry on it. It's a 1-to-1. So if I have 3 electrons here, it remains loss of 3 electrons. Let's say this was a 2. It means that I have to multiply the 3 by 2 if I have stoichiometry. Manganese كمان 1-to-1. The reactant that's undergoing reduction is the oxidizing agent. The one that's undergoing oxidation will be the reducing agent. They're both reactants. All right, officially here, the number of electrons gained and lost is exactly the same. So we simply have to balance the oxygens with first we balance the charge with the H's and then the oxygens with water. So let's look at the charge. انسوا انه هون في H plus بالاول. So عندي iron هون -1 charge. On this part we have a +3 charge. So to make this side the same, انتبهوا كتير هون charge is balanced with H plus. So we add 4 H pluses to this end. Very different than half reaction method. هيداك the charge was balanced with electrons. Honey, there isn't really, we don't put electrons at all in the equation itself. We balance the electrons just by knowing how much is being oxidized and reduced and degree multiplying. Then we're going to balance the oxygen with water. So we have 4 oxygens on this end. Here we have 2, so I need 2 more oxygens, giving me as well 2 hydrogens, which balance the overall equation. Let's look at this example, much harder example to do. Okay, so we have the chromium. What I want you guys to do right now is do the oxidation number for each of these major elements. لنقول الكروميوم is X, so عندنا 2X. وهون oxygen you know is -2, so هيدا -2 times 7 خلينا -14 equals la -2. Take the 14 to the other side, solve for X, we get that. For the chromium, X is 6. For the sulfur here, عندنا -2 للأكسجين plus 1 للهيدروجين. So عندنا +1 plus X للsulfur. وعندنا -6 here. 2 times 3 equals -1. Solve for X. X is, here's -5. Take to the other side. Becomes +5 and overall becomes 4. So sulfur is 4. Here. When you see a water, don't do anything because هيدا -2 للأكسجين وهوني +1 times 2, so overall water is a 0. So ما بجي بحسبها within the overall compound. أسهل لي لأنه it balanced itself. So chromium is X, sulfur is, we keep this, oxygen is -2. And here, this sulfur, I don't know what it is, okay? The one thing that you must watch out for is if I have 2 sulfurs on the product side, which is the case here, that these sulfurs must have the same oxidation number. And so what I'm going to do is solve for this one first, and then put what is the oxidation state for here. So in this compound, I only have sulfur and oxygen, so I could solve easily for sulfur as the X. Oxygen, again, is -2. So عندنا X -8 equals -2 as the charge. X, take the 8 to the other side, becomes 6. So the sulfur has an oxidation number of 6 here, and then we must then put an oxidation number of 6 for this sulfur in this compound. Okay, so because it's the same, it's a sulfur on the product side, it must have the same oxidation number. This oxidation number is different from the reactant side sulfur. Now we can solve for the chromium. عندنا X للchromium, عندي +6 للsulfur, -8 للoxygen, equals to a +1 total charge. So for X, honey, -2, take to the other side, so X is 3, and indeed the chromium is 3. So now we got the oxidation number of each of the elements, the major compounds. We can see that chromium is going from 6 to 3. Okay, from 6 to 3. The sulfur is going from 4 to 6, whether it's on this side or that side, but he's going from oxidation number of 4 to oxidation number of 6. Okay. What's happening? The chromium is gaining 3 electrons. So gain 3 electrons, okay? And write it like that, gaining 3 electrons. What's happening to the sulfur? Loss, it's losing, it's becoming more positive, it's losing 2 electrons. okay? Loss of 2, gain of 3 electrons. I must have these guys, the loss and the gain, equal in numbers. Now, before I have them equal in numbers, I first have to balance the elements. So here, chromium and 2 elements. Here I have to have 2 for the chromium in front of him. The sulfurs, I don't balance them now. I use whatever the electrons gain and loss to balance. So here I have 2 elements of chromium. Each element must gain 3 electrons to go from the reactant side to the product side. So I must multiply this bottom by 2 to get the overall number of electrons that must be gained. So this must gain 6 electrons in order for the reaction to take place. Okay? And so minus 6 is, gaining 6 electrons. On this end, now, I must here have that the number of electrons gained must be equal to the number of electrons lost. We already had that for each sulfur, I am losing 2 electrons to go from the reactant side to the product side. And if you look at this, if I multiply this by 2, how many sulfurs overall do I have on the product side? I have 2 here and 1 here. I have 3. And therefore, I must multiply this by 3. But pay attention that I could have also multiplied here, let's say by 2, and then I would have had this 5. So it's really up to me to decide how many sulfurs I have, because here I can modify this to any number. So what should the number that what should I choose? I should choose 3. Why? Because if I want to gain 6 electrons, I must have equal loss of 6 electrons from somewhere. So if each of these sulfurs loses 2 electrons, therefore, if I multiply by 3, I get a total of 6 lost. So there I've balanced the gain and loss of electrons. So I will multiply this by 3, meaning that this guy will be multiplied by 1 to get equal number of sulfurs. Not easy, a bit annoying actually, but now we've balanced, with oxidation numbers, the electrons, and that's يعني ما بنحط electrons plus electron minus electron. And then you balance the charge with H plus, and finally you use water to balance the oxygens and hydrogens. So once this is now like that, we balance the charge. هيدي -2, هيدا -3 because 3 times -1. هون عنا +2 because plus times 2. هون عنا -2. So overall charge here is 0. So I must have this as 0. And now -2 -3, that's -5. So I should add 5 H pluses to balance the charge. And then in acidic medium, we're balancing here. If in basic medium, I have to have OH minus to balance the charge. So I would have added here on this end 5 OH minus to balance the charge. Then go ahead and you can sit there and count the hydrogens and oxygens, and you use water to balance the number of oxygens. بيطلعوا الهيدروجينز ظابطين. So عندنا 7 oxygen and 3 times 3 is 9. 7 plus 9 is 16 oxygens on this end. عندنا 5 here and 4 is 9. Plus 4 is 13. So I need 3. Oh, sorry, هون نسينا 2. عندنا 5 times 2, 10. and 14. عنا هون بس 10 18 18 plus 4 هيدي 5 4 9 ضرب 2 18 plus 4 is 22 oxygens. 22 oxygens هون عنا 16, so I will add 6 more oxygens from water and we get 22, and you will see that the hydrogens are balanced and we're done. Okay, بدها شوية practice to do it, but it's fine. Any questions?
دكتور فيك تعيديها انت الخطية.